This is very destabilising for the Conservative Party to be in such obvious rows leading up to the election.
I'd go further and say it's civil war. And they've been fighting the civil war for the last 4 years. So if you wanted to actually help the Conservative Party, you don't do things like this. I mean, the only thing that Priti Patel, I think, got right yesterday was that she apologised for the losses in the local council elections. She made the point that this was Westminster's fault. That's what people were reacting against. That went down with an awful lot of the local councillors who did lose, including my wife, who lost her seat. So I think that was a plus. What didn't come out of it is what you're going to do about it. So if the subtext of everything she's saying is bring back Boris, that almost certainly is not going to happen now.
No. I mean, she did talk about having got rid of a surefire election winning Prime Minister or something like that, which is not quite the same as advocating bringing him back. But these people do want to hear something about how the Conservative Party is going to address the subject of growth. And don't you think that the Conservatives are in a slightly dangerous position if Labour's proposition is high taxes and high public spending, the Conservative proposition is identical? What would be the reason for voting Conservative in those circumstances?
Well, I think that the Labour plan at the moment is not high taxes. I mean, there are certain taxes that they will impose. The non-dom tax status would go, the charitable status of private schools, those particular kind of tax changes. I'm sure there would be a greater windfall tax on the energy companies. But they're not talking about actually raising basic rate or anything like that.
No.
What Keir Starmer is talking about is having the fastest growth in the G7. He's yet to explain how he's going to achieve that. And so what he did yesterday, which was a kind of relaunch of the Labour Party, was to say that his administration is going to be, as he put it, clause 4 on steroids. And quite clearly, his ambitions are much greater than Tony Blair's were in 1997. Whether or not you actually achieve that is another matter.
I find it extraordinary how politicians really believe that by mouthing a slogan, they sort of achieve the policy. I mean, I'd love to have the greatest growth in the G7. I think it's an absolutely splendid idea. But I see no evidence whatsoever that Labour or indeed Conservatives are going to achieve it. And when I was referring to high taxes, I wasn't particularly referring to ideas that Labour might have for putting taxes higher. I'm saying that we are at an historically very high level of tax burden and historically a very high level of public spending.
Yes, and that's absolutely true. So we have the highest tax burden for 70 years. Clearly that the likes of Priti Patel and the others who gathered at the conference yesterday want to see a pledge of lower taxes. But we've tried that. We tried that with Liz Truss, and it didn't work. And I don't think you can do that at a time of high inflation. Once inflation is beaten, certainly you can start addressing the tax issue. What you can't do is address it yet.